I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do. And I think it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, my children my homeland. And I think what really worries me more than anything else about today's decision, depending on, what happens next, is that it's set a new precedent, that security can be used to control members of the family. And effectively what it does is imprison other members of the family from being able to, choose a different life. If for me, security is conditional on having an official role, one that both myself and my wife wished to carry on, but then was rejected, not by Rabeg, was rejected by the royal household. And the result to that is you lose your security. That basically says that you can't live outside of their control, if you want to be safe.
Do you want the court battle to continue? Do you want to try to see this get to the Supreme Court?
I don't want any battles to continue. There is way too much suffering and way too much conflict in the world. At the heart of it is a family dispute. And it makes me really, really sad that we're sitting here today, 5 years later, where a decision that was made, most likely, in fact, I know, to keep us under the roof. But then once they realized that wasn't going to work, once they realized that, myself, my wife, and our kids are happier outside of the institution, then please just look at the facts. Look at the risks, look at the threat, look at the impact that if anything was to happen to me, my wife, or my father's grandchildren, if anything was to happen to them, look where the responsibility lies. So, there's a duty of care that has been completely thrown out the window. And that doesn't feel great. So for me, having an official role was conditional on keeping security. But for everybody else, people who have chosen this life to enter into public office and then leave, get it for life, regardless of whether they have risk or threat to their name. And by the way, I agree with that. I think that is absolutely the right thing to do. That if you come in and you serve your country, even if it's a minimum of 4 years, that you get the protection that you require because of your public service. I was born into this position. It wasn't a choice. I've served my country for 35 years. I believe that I am still continuing to serve my country. Public service is my life. That is the dedication that will never change. And then all the other bits and pieces that are added to that. There are very, very real threats that exist out there. Some that are known about, some that have been withheld. And for people in power and responsibility of decisions to know that those threats and risks exist, but to turn around and say, well, because you don't have an official role, your life doesn't actually matter anymore. Well, you can imagine how I feel about that, but you can also imagine, not even imagine, that is the most illogical argument in the history of arguments. At this point, I'm feeling very let down. It's the minority of people, especially those that read the tabloids and the press themselves. The press themselves have incited so much hatred towards myself, my wife, and even our children, that's hard to forgive. I actually couldn't believe it. I thought with all the disagreements and all of the chaos that's happening, the one thing that I could rely on is my family keeping me safe. And not only did they decide to remove my security in the UK, but they also signaled to every single government around the world not to protect us. I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile. As I learned through the First Nations throughout Canada, because of the Invictus Games, their goal in life was always truth and reconciliation. And I turned around to them in many conversations. I said, right, but reconciliation can't come without truth. Well, I've now found out the truth. I've shared some of it with you today. A lot of it exists out there, whether people choose to ignore it or not. So it would be nice to have that reconciliation part now. If they don't want that, that's entirely up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Royal Chronicles. Buckle up, because today we are diving into one of the most heartfelt and revealing interviews Prince Harry has ever given. And oh, trust me, it's got the tabloids sweating bullets. You know, for all the nonsense people love to spout about Harry and Meghan Sussex, this interview lays it all bare. And, spoiler alert, it's the critics who come out looking like clowns. So, Harry sits down and says, point blank, "I can't see a world where I'd bring my wife and children back to the UK right now." And honestly, can you blame him? The man has been hounded by the press since birth, and now that he's a father, his number one priority is keeping his family safe, something the British establishment seems to have conveniently forgotten. He talks about missing the UK, missing parts of his homeland, but what really hits hard is when he says it's sad that he can't show his kids where he grew up. Imagine that heartbreak. While most parents are planning trips to the local museum or grandma's house, Harry's over here trying to figure out if it's even safe to visit the land where his own family name built centuries of history. And let's pause to appreciate that Harry and Meghan Sussex didn't just run away, they walked away with purpose. They tried to keep official roles, to continue public service, but nope, the royal institutions slammed that door, yanked their security and basically said, "Good luck out there, folks." I mean, who does that to their own family? Oh right, a family that makes The Crown look like a Disney movie. Harry's not asking for VIP treatment at the airport or a red carpet rolled out at Buckingham Palace. He's asking for basic safety for his wife and kids. You know, the same kids who are also the grandchildren of the king. But apparently the rule in Windsor is, if you step back, you get thrown to the wolves. Harry even points out how people who serve in public office get lifelong security, and he agrees they should. But he also says, "Hey, I was born into this, I didn't choose it. I served my country for 35 years. I'm still serving it through public work. And yet, he's treated like some random cousin twice removed. It's mind-blowing." Now, the British tabloids, oh, they love to frame Harry and Meghan Sussex as the villains, right? Oh, they abandoned the family. Oh, they're ungrateful. Please, let's be honest here. Harry's biggest crime is protecting his wife and children from the same brutal treatment his mother, Princess Diana, faced. And we all know how that ended. And speaking of the tabloids, Harry nailed it when he called them out for inciting hatred. He says point blank that they've stirred up hate toward him, Meghan Sussex and even their kids. Can we talk about how vile that is? Attacking a couple is bad enough. Dragging their kids into it is just peak trash. But hey, when has the British press ever let human decency get in the way of a good headline? Harry also dropped this powerful truth bomb. Reconciliation can't come without truth. Boom. Mic drop. Someone please embroider that on a pillow and send it to Kensington Palace. Because, let's face it, you can't heal a family rift if you're all pretending it never happened. And can we take a moment to laugh at the fact that the palace is apparently ghosting Harry over the security issue? He's like, "My father won't even speak to me because of this." Yikes. Imagine Charles ignoring his own son over something as basic as safety. But hey, at least there's always room to post about environmental causes on Instagram, right? What I love most is Harry's heart. He's not out here trying to burn bridges. He literally says, "I would love reconciliation." He wants peace, he wants healing, he wants his kids to know their roots. But he's not about to sacrifice their safety or his integrity just to keep up appearances. And Meghan Sussex? She's been right by his side through all of it. Resilient, graceful, and still smiling despite the mountain of abuse hurled her way. If you ask me, they're the real-life definition of power couple. Now here's where things get really human. Prince Harry has repeatedly expressed that he wants reconciliation with his family. He's made it clear that, despite the public drama, Despite the painful accusations, and despite walking away from royal life, at the end of the day, he still loves his father and his brother. This isn't a man who wants to burn the whole palace down. This is a man who wants to rebuild a bridge. Maybe with a few extra security cameras on it, sure, but a bridge nonetheless. But here's the kicker. While Harry is opening the door, the palace seems to be busy nailing it shut from the inside. King Charles, for all his talk of being a modern monarch, seems stuck in the oldest royal tradition of all, silence and cold shoulders. And don't even get me started on Prince William, who's reportedly still fuming over the Netflix docuseries and Spare like it came out yesterday. It's almost comedic at this point. Waiting for Charles to apologise is like waiting for the Queen's corgis to answer your emails. You're going to be waiting a long, long time, and frankly, the corgis might show more emotion. What's fascinating here is that Harry has shown enormous emotional maturity. He's gone to therapy, he's spoken openly about trauma, and he's made the first move multiple times. Meanwhile, the palace is clinging to their classic playbook: never complain, never explain. Well, except when they quietly brief the press. Then apparently it's always complain, never on the record. It's heartbreaking when you think about it. Harry's basically saying, I'm here, I'm ready, let's talk. And the institution is saying, we'll send you a press statement, maybe next Christmas. And let's be honest, reconciliation isn't just about Harry and Charles or Harry and William. It's about Archie and Lilibet knowing their grandparents and cousins. It's about stopping this cycle of cold generational dysfunction. Harry seems to get that. The question is, will the royal family finally step up, or will they just keep polishing the silverware while the family bond rusts away? So, let's wrap this up with some truth. Harry and Meghan Sussex have taken an enormous personal risk to stand up for what's right. For themselves, their children, and frankly for anyone who's ever been crushed under the weight of public expectation. They've redefined royal duty not as a photo op on a balcony, but as real, hands-on service around the world. To all the haters, maybe it's time to get a hobby. Harry and Meghan Sussex are too busy living their best lives to worry about your negativity. If you've enjoyed this deep dive and you're as fired up as I am, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And hey, if you want to help keep this channel going and support more positive stories about Harry and Meghan Sussex, smash that super thanks button. Every bit helps. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and remember, truth always comes before reconciliation.